When Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of all time, the Oracle of Omaha, does something, the rest of the market takes notice. And today I'm talking about the idea that Warren Buffett sold nearly $390 million worth of Delta and Southwest Airlines shares this past week. So of course, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking with you about exactly what Warren Buffett did and how much of his airline positions he dropped this week. Of course, we always get started on this channel by taking a look at my portfolio, sitting at a value at $29,683. It ended the day on Friday with a decline of just over 1%, 1.37% decline on Friday, which equates to just about $400. And overall, this portfolio is down around 20%, or $7,100. Of course, we're going to get right into it, and today we're doing a news update video, which is about Warren Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, and they sold nearly $390 million worth of airline companies. Of course, we all know what's going on in the world, and the airline industry, of course, in tourism industry, is getting hit very hard right now. And when Mr. Buffett does something or makes a move like this, it gets everyone else on notice. It kind of brings attention to that idea even more than people have already been looking at it. When Mr. Buffett makes a big move like this, it brings everyone else's eyes to the idea of what they should be doing with these holdings. So moving on down here, you can see Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold nearly $390 million worth of shares in Delta Airlines and Southwest Airlines earlier this week. This is an article off Market Insiders. And the billionaire investors company cut its stake in Delta by nearly 1/5 and its Southwest holding by just over 4%. So 1/5 equates to about 20%, of course, which is about a decent chunk of his holdings. Berkshire's stock portfolio took an estimated $5 billion hit on its airline holdings in the first quarter what's going on in the world that everyone knows, I don't want to say it out loud, but we all know has led to strong travel restrictions on what people can do and where they can go. So moving on further within this article that caught my attention is just how much of these companies Warren Buffett or Berkshire Hathaway actually held and owned. So Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold nearly $390 million, like we've said. The famed investors conglomerate slashed roughly its 11% stake in Delta by 1/5 from 71.9 million shares to 58.9 million shares. So what this idea was is before this all happened, Warren Buffett owned 11% of Delta Airlines, or I'd rather say Berkshire Hathaway owned 11% of Delta Airlines. 11% is a very big chunk. And him reducing that by about, well, I'm going to say 15 million shares, or 20% reduction in his stake in Delta Airlines, that's pretty significant. That's something to be aware of because it's not like he sold these companies for no reason. These companies are going through rough times. Delta has actually suspended its dividend moving forward for the near future, I'm sure. And it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens with these companies long term. Also, it says here that Berkshire sold about 2.3 million shares in Southwest, reducing its stake in the airline by just over 4%. So they reduced another 4% of their ownership in Southwest Airline. This is remarkable. Obviously, Berkshire Hathaway is one of the largest companies in the world, and when they buy into companies, they don't buy in for very small amounts. They buy chunks and they buy ownership and a significant part of the ownership into these large companies. So for them reducing their percentage in these companies by 1/5 and then by 4% overall, those are huge moves by Buffett. And what makes this interesting is that Warren Buffett is sitting on over $125 billion of cash right now in his portfolio. So he has a lot of cash. So these sales weren't needed to generate cash. He has a huge cash position right now, and he has a lot of money that he can throw into companies that he feels are undervalued and he believes will succeed long term. So it's very interesting to see what happened. And of course, this other article here on Barron's talks about how Delta Airlines suspends dividends and buybacks. And of course, I don't know if that led to Warren Buffett's decision, but I'm sure it had a factor. Warren Buffett is a dividend investor. Of course, he does own companies like Amazon, who he recently picked up, who don't own dividends. But he is a strong believer in dividends. He's a strong believer in having that consistent cash flow and having that money coming in from these strong blue chip companies. And of course, when a company, when it was one of his holdings, cuts their dividend, I'm sure he takes that into consideration on what he should do moving forward. If he should continue to hold the company, sell it, reduce his position like we just saw in both Delta and Southwest. So it's very interesting to see what's going to happen moving forward. Next, we're going to move over to the actual stock charts for each of the individual companies. So Delta Airlines stock chart right here, we're on the 1-year chart. Of course, Google Finance hasn't updated this 7.16% dividend. The dividend has been suspended, so it will no longer be paying a dividend moving forward. But that could be temporary. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward? I cannot predict how these companies are going to operate. But just looking at the 1-year chart here, you see it was kind of flat for about 1 year at around $56 to $58 a share. We can see a little upward trend here, but then it can see it's consistently flat. And then, of course, we know what's going on in the market now. And let's see here from February 11th, at its lowest point, it's currently down almost 62%. At its lowest point, it was down 63.33% on Delta Airlines. So, of course, I'm sure Warren Buffett's actions of reducing his position may have had an effect on the stock price, only because he owns such a large chunk of the company, and when his selling may have led to a further downward movement in the stock. Of course, I'm unaware of that, but as you can see here, the after hours chart, it is down almost over 11% after hours. So this stock has definitely been taking a beating, and of course, it's to be expected with what's going on in the world. And moving over to Southwest Airlines, again, we'll go to their 1-year chart. We go to the peak, and we look at where it's sitting now, about a 48% dip in share price for Southwest Airlines. At its lowest point, it was down 40%, and now it's down, about 48%. And same thing, similar, after hours, we're seeing a 5% in the red, a 5% drop in stock price after hours. So who knows what's going to happen with these airlines and when these airlines are going to recover, or what is going to happen moving forward. But no one can predict that. We don't know how long whatever's going on in the world is going to continue for. Of course, our world is not ending. Airlines are going to be needed in the future. There's no other way of transportation coming out within the next 5-10 years that are going to replace the airlines. So, of course, these companies there's still going to be a need for them moving forward. It'll be interesting to see when that need will come back and when that demand for airlines and travel will return. But one other company I want to make aware of that has nothing to do with Warren Buffett, but another company that I do like that I want to bring everyone's idea to is Air Canada stock. So, of course, Air Canada, the name is a Canadian airline, of course. They do not pay a dividend, and this has nothing to do with Warren Buffett. But when talking about the airline industry, there's a stock that I have my eyes on that if I were to jump in, I am holding out right now. There are other positions that I feel are more undervalued and do pay a dividend that I will invest in before I jump into Air Canada. But a fellow investor of mine within the investor community told me to take a look at them, and I have been analyzing their financials, and I am going to wait them out. I never try to time the market, but because there are a lot of other holdings that I believe in long term that I can buy right now, I'm going to consistently contribute to my portfolio each and every month, like always, and buy those holdings first. And this will just be on the back burn as an afterthought. If I decide to do jump into it, I will. But just to show you, similar to Southwest and Delta, they have the same 1-year chart. They look all very similar. A little bit of growth, but an overall somewhat flat, slow increase in the stock price over the past 1 year. Then, of course, if I were to start from here, we see a huge reduction in stock price. And this is why I want to show you Air Canada compared to the other two. Delta, we saw about a 62% drop in share price. Then we went to Southwest and we saw about a 48% drop in share price. Now moving over to Air Canada, a Canadian airline, which is, again, same industry, same sector, same operations, is down 74%. Then currently down 69%, but at its lowest point, it was down 74% from its share price. And that was even from the all-time high. If I go to the all-time high here, if I can get that perfect, it was down 77% from its all-time high. So there's another company just to be aware of if anyone is trying to jump into the airline industry. Personally, I'm trying to hold back. When I see Warren Buffett do something, I just believe he's very intelligent. Of course, he's one of the best investors of all time, and I want to follow his lead. So the fact that he's reducing his stake in airline companies right now doesn't motivate me to jump right in. Some people may believe in it. They may jump in. Who knows? I could be wrong. He could be wrong. These airlines may shoot up. But Warren Buffett didn't dump all of his airlines completely for that exact reason, that I'm sure he still believes in the companies and believes in the necessity of airlines and believes that they will continue to grow moving forward. But as of right now, I'm going to hold out. Delta, they have suspended their dividend. Southwest, they have been taking a beating. Both these companies are going hard. And when Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, one of my idols, one of the people I look up to for financial advice and just to learn from, When this man right here does something, the rest of the market takes notice. And as always, I'm going to end off the video here. This was just a short news update where I just talked about some news in the market and how Warren Buffett is making headlines by doing big changes to his portfolio, by shedding some value and reducing his stake in Delta and Southwest Airlines. So as always, I'm the Gen Z investor. I appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to watching you and having you guys come back for my next video in the future. Thanks. See you next time.